Welcome, everybody, to Untamed, Unbroken, the ongoing adventures of House Tanner in Westeros. And we've got our regular players, Garrett playing Ricard, Lord Ricard Tanner, Deborah playing Sir Benjamin, the cross-dressing hedge knight, and James playing Corlin, the master of the hunt, and Tanner, not House Tanner, playing Willem Tanner, who I just realized is probably named after the guy from Pirates of the Caribbean.
No, not at all.
Isn't that Will Tanner? Isn't that?
It might be. I'm not familiar with those movies.
Oh, I think he's like that's that's like the big somebody help me out here. What's the name of the actor? Like the guy that played.
Not his character.
No, not Johnny Depp. It's the guy that played Legolas. What's his name?
Oh, Orlando Bloom.
Orlando Bloom's character is Will Tanner.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But anyway, before last game, I had suggested that I was going to pass like 3 months kind of in email between everybody's games. But I decided that since we all need to learn the system, it'd be better if we did house actions and pass some time in game so you guys can all see how it works, in the hope that we could still maybe do it over email in the future. But the first time, try and do it in person to learn how house actions work and how time affects your house stats.
Cool. And then we all have, from your email, I read through your emails, so we all have a glory that we can individually spend on the house.
Exactly. Yes. You have one. Every one of you got one glory point for the battle with the brigands outside the inn at the crossroads, and the uses of glory are very simple. The best thing to do with it is to invest it in the house, and you can add it to any one of the house's 7 resources. And if anyone is not familiar with what those resources are, in our folder, the Chronicle folder on our Google Drive, you can see the folder for House Tanner, and I'll put it in the chat window here. If you just link on that document, and you'll see the house's 7 stats, which range from defense, which is your castle, Tanner Hall, influence, your lands, the size of the lands that you own, law, how much the law is enforced, how common is criminality and banditry in your lands, which is your lowest stat, population, power, your military might, and wealth. And you can invest glory into any of those stats on a 1-for-1 basis. It might take some time for that number to show up. And it's also kind of cool if we can use it to figure out kind of what your character was doing so that number went up. So, for example, let's say that Will decided he wanted to go schmooze at the houses of nearby lords, or he wanted to go to the inn at the crossroads and like party with all the famous people that came through town, you might spend your point on influence to reflect your house's, attempts to build ties with other houses and other lords. Conversely, if Ricard decides to offer more money as an incentive to soldiers to join his ranks, or maybe he tries to start recruiting another military unit, he might represent that by putting his point into power. And that's the main use of glory. It's the best use of glory. But if you decide that you don't have a house, or you're not loyal to your house and you really don't want to spend it on your house, or if you're just in really emergencies and you are out of destiny points, you can spend your glory to give yourself a bonus die on any single test. But destiny points also do that, and destiny points recharge, which glory points do not. So if you are curious about destiny points, that's something I wanted to remind you about. They are on page 72 of the book, and there's a long list of things you can do with them. But we might be able to get to those tonight. And I encourage you tonight to spend your destiny points when you just make rolls or want to do stuff, and you'll get them all back at the end of the session. So I encourage you to.
Do you get glory points that you spend on bonus dice back ever?
No. If you spend a glory point, on a bonus die, it's gone. Glory is always once spent, forever gone. So I think the optional rule where you can use them to buy yourself a bonus die is basically there for people that don't have a house. They don't want to spend it on their house, or they don't have destiny points. There's no other way they can do it.
Or they're going to straight up die.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're going to straight up die. Yeah.
It's like, who cares about the house? I'm not going to be here anymore.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then, so we all have one destiny point and one glory.
You all have one glory point. You might have more than one destiny point. Destiny points are determined when you make your character, and they're based on your age and how many drawbacks and benefits you took.
Okay.
Corlin has one because he's fairly old for this group.
Oh, that's right. I'm middle-aged or whatever.
Yeah, and so you have younger characters have more destiny points. And older characters are more invested in things. They have more social connections, and they have more rank, and they have more privilege, and they have all kinds of stuff that they have done over the course of their lives. And so their destinies are, in that game sense, already determined. Whereas young characters, their destinies are more unpredictable. They could do anything. And so they have more destiny points to spend.
Okay, so I have two. So I have 2 destiny points and 1 glory. I just check my sheet. So
okay,
makes sense.
Yeah, the destiny points are also kind of a balancing factor. Characters that are young have less experience points, and so they get destiny points to kind of give them a little something. Also, characters that are high in status, like Ricard and Will, had to buy head of house or heir with some of their destiny points. And so destiny points give other characters who maybe didn't buy stuff like that something else that they can kind of depend on. Destiny points can also influence the game a little bit. Like you can create objects that you need. Like I just happen to have, this thing on me that, or you can get a clue or a hint about the story or a problem. The players have some power to influence the story with destiny points. So, if you're in a fight and you have no weapon, you can say, well, I'm going to spend a destiny point and pick up this loose weapon that was dropped on the ground from someone else. You're like, okay, you do. Or I pulled a knife out of my boot with my destiny point. I didn't know you had a knife in your boot. Well, that's why I'm spending a destiny point.
Makes sense.
Tanner, you had a question.
Yeah, so we each got 8 XP at the end of
Yes, you did.
the last adventure, and I was looking on the character sheet, and it seems to me like you kind of bank XP for a while, and then you choose to spend it on a specialty or an ability.
Right, and you actually had XP from the first session too, so you should have, I think, something like
I had 8.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have 8. Yeah.
So you have an 8 XP, and the way that so you bank it, and you wouldn't normally be banking it for as long as you are banking it, but our session's only 2 hours long, and so we can't do a lot of scenes. But the way that Song of Ice and Fire gives out XP is per scene, and the XP you get is based on the challenge of that scene. And we've had 2 scenes, and both of those scenes were minor, and that's determined by the defense, the target number that you had to hit in that encounter. And rewards can be split up into basically 3 different kinds of rewards. They can be experience points, they can be glory, or they can be money. And the more they're divided, the fewer of each you'll get. So, if it's all XP, you got 2 or you got 4. But if it had to be split between XP and glory, you would get 1 of each or less.
Okay.
And then the form of the reward depends on sort of what happened during the game. So if your fight with the bandits had been in the middle of the forest and no one had been around to see it or hear of it, you wouldn't have gotten glory. You would have just gotten more XP. But because it took place at the end of the crossroads and Mistress Needle is going to tell everybody about it, you got glory instead.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then and the other reward is money. And now what you will discover is that when or if you get a money reward, it will seem like an enormous amount of money. Like it'll be like hundreds of dragons. Okay. And you'll be like, how did I get all this money from like beating up bandits or something? And what you have to remember is that is intentionally designed so that you can sink that money into your house. Remember that there's a gold sink in this game. and that is your house. And you can spend 200 gold dragons at any time to raise your house's wealth score by 1. So that's kind of the money sink. If you don't have a house, you don't get hundreds of gold dragons as a reward.
And so the idea behind raising our house's stats
Yes.
is that at some point in time, another house is going to come at us, and we're going to have to use those stats in defense of ourselves, right?
Well, it's kind of, think of the house as a character, right? With its own stats. And it's a character that it's kind of like in Firefly, if you remember that show. Where the ship itself was a kind of character on the show. And everybody kind of had a relationship with the ship.
Yeah.
The house is the group character. And your individual character, this is Game of Thrones. Like, people can die in this game, as we saw where
we all almost died last time.
where Corlin was like 1 shot, 1 kill with his long, right? So, and by the way, I just want to note right off that I was using the sample adventure, and the lead knight, Sir Arlen, whatever his name was, he wasn't supposed to take injuries or wounds. He was supposed to just take health points and fall over. But if I had him do that, nobody would have learned anything about combat, because Corlin would have just shot everybody before anyone else got into combat range.
Oh.
That was the original plan.
I know it was, but it's a tutorial, man.
The original plan was to try and talk our way.
The fault was really mine, because it's so far away that it took.
Lord Tanner's plan was very clear from the beginner. I was supposed to shoot people, not talk.
Anyway, so we determined that, I mean, at the same time, though, Ricard took like 9 points of damage, and it all bounced off of his half plate. So, damage is really extreme, but at the same time, armor is really, really useful. So, characters can come and go, but the house remains. I mean, to a great extent, if you think about the novels, it's not so much the individual stories of Sansa and Arya and Jon, or Ned, for that matter, as it is the House Stark. It's the story of the Lannisters and the Starks, or the Yorks and the Lancasters, as I myself always get them confused with. Our game is starting 2 years before the events of the book. Your characters don't know shit's going to happen, but that within 2 years, the kingdom is going to be erupted in a 5-way civil war. So you said at some point another house is going to come after us. At the latest, when the entire kingdom is going to just collapse into anarchy. And you want to be as well positioned as you can for that time. But there's also individual character motivations for this. I mean, Di's not here, but Jenna wants to be queen. She has sort of these deep-rooted paranoia inferiority complexes, which can only be resolved by being queen of Westeros. So, and Ricard has ambition too. He wants to be more powerful and to have more lands, and to maybe have other lords underneath him instead of being. He doesn't want to be status 4 forever.
No, King's good.
King is good. So, I mean, Willem might not care less, but
Will just wants to be loved by all.
Loved by all, yeah. So yes, you can strengthen your house. But if you decide, and you don't have the donation of glory does not have to be in character. If you decide that Will's not he's not the sort of guy that would go out and sort of champion the house's cause. He's just sort of doing his little daily thing day at a time. Then you, as a player, can just donate the glory point to whatever you want to spend it on. Likewise, Corlin might feel that he's just doing whatever Lord Tanner tells him to do. So, but James, as a player, should spend the glory point where he wants to spend it, not just where Garrett wants him to spend it.
I already know. I'm going to spend my glory point on the military strength.
Oh,
improve
on
our
power?
archers.
All right. So, all right. Well, that's a good first example. Okay. So,
Yeah, it's an easy choice for my character and what my player is interested in.
so we'll say that you're like training you're trying to train up some, well, you already have a unit of archers. So we'll say that you're like training them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the idea is to train them up. So mine will go into power, and then
Yep.
either we could buy another group, or we can improve the archers, or make more archers so there's
Yep.
more than 100 or whatever. I don't know. I haven't looked into how that works yet.
If you look at your house stats, you can see that your power is 25. So now it'll become 26.
Yep.
And
looks
it's
like we've
divided
spent-
up into 3 military units. You have the cavalry, the trained archers, and you have the garrison of the town. And then at the bottom, you'll see you have available 4. So now you have available 5. And if you look, you can see how much the various units cost. So the archers cost 6. I mean, you're 1 point away from recruiting another 100 archers if that's what you wanted to do. Or you might spend points to make your current archers veterans instead of trained. You might raise their quality, which would raise their combat skills. So you have some options there. And those points go into a bank, and only Garrett can decide how to spend them because he is the man. Let me sort of summarize. For example, we're gonna try to pass through a few months tonight, and the first month that we're passing is when you guys go to the tournament. You fight off the bandits and rescue Mena, your chief falconer, and after a day or so, you continue on your way to the tournament, and there's a lot of other powerful families there. And knights have come from all over. This is an annual tournament. It's called the Tournament of the Seven Brothers. It's held in a different place every year because there's an old legend that when the Andals settled, they brought it's a long myth, and I won't describe the entire myth, but basically every year a flower blooms in one of 7 castles around Westeros. And wherever the flower blooms, that's where the tournament has to be held.
Cool.
And this is like something that it's old tradition to appease the old gods, because the Andals burned all of the weirwoods and didn't respect the original, the old gods of this land. And so when they were convinced that that was a bad thing and they should maybe not have burned all the weirwoods down, they were ordered to hold these tournaments. And so there's these 7 castles, different places all around Westeros, and no one knows where the flower's going to bloom every year. And so that's where you were going. And everyone, I'm not going to make a lot of die rolls or anything for like who did well in the tournament. Corlin, you're a pretty good shot. You've got archery of, I think, 5.
Yeah, I have archery of 5 with a specialty of 3 in bows.
Yeah. So you do very well. There aren't very many people out there who can rival you in the archery contest, but there are some. You didn't win, but you put in a really good show. Benjamin, what's your fighting?
4.
Okay. You were like in there in the melee. There's a melee, a joust, and a sword fight competition. You didn't get very far. You were like eliminated in like the second round. A lot of these guys, they have 5 dice. So if you want to get higher in the tournament, you're going to have to raise your fighting.
Okay.
But just as important as the tournament, and you guys, you put on a good show. You earn some acclaim, but there's also a lot of meeting and greeting, a lot of being seen, and overhearing gossip and sort of learning what things are going on in the kingdom, and a lot of that goes on. And so the way that's represented in the game is that if you remember at the end of last week, I had Garrett make a few House Fortune rolls. And the first roll was positive, and it rewarded your house with 1 die 3, between 1 to 3 points in any one resource. So I just rolled a 2 and added that to your influence to represent your time at the tournament. So that raises your influence for the house by 2. And again, if you look back at your house stats, that means your influence goes from 22 to 24. Most of these bands, like if you get to 30, your potential status goes up. Your status score doesn't rise, but your maximum status goes up. So you could raise your status with experience points after you get influence of 30 or more. You'd still be a minor house, but you wouldn't be a small minor house. Okay. Did anyone want to do anything or claim anything or have any particular desire to handle the loot, the plunder that you got from the bandit hall? Jenna wanted to return it to the people it was stolen from, but that's really hard to know who that is, and some of those people are dead. But the bandit hall, which, and I put you a big list in the email, lots of weapons and armor and stuff like that, some money, but the money that you recovered is like pocket change compared to how much money your family has. So. Ricard, any dispensation of the loot?
Sure. Well, anybody who needs something, get it. There are horses as well, right?
There were 2 Rounceys, which is kind of the not a particularly good war horse, but they are trained for combat. It's like the lowest level trained for combat horse.
All right. So Benjamin needs a horse.
Yep.
And Portland, you need a horse, right?
I do know how to ride a horse.
You need
me one, but I only need one for travel. I'm not really trained to ride a horse into battle. Not exactly my thing. I'm a hunter.
Right.
So,
but I think everybody else has one, right?
Will, do you have a horse?
I do.
Yeah. All right. So Corlin and Benjamin get the Rounceys.
Right.
Yeah.
And Benjamin needs a crossbow, so she's taking that. And if there's a sword, Corlin, or anybody who needs a sword, but I want to be sure Corlin gets a short sword or a long sword or whatever he needs.
yeah, I'll take if there's a short sword in there, I'll take that as
I believe there was only there are only long swords.
I'm not really trained for a long sword. They're not my kind of style.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't think we had crossbow. I think we had just normal bows.
Oh, I thought they had crossbows.
Yeah.
There
the
are
problem with-
the total list is 2 Rounceys, 4 gold dragons, some silver and coppers, 2 hunting bows, 2 battle axes, 3 suits of mail, 1 suit of ring mail, 2 long swords, a morning star, a shield, a heavy shield. Benjamin, you could take the heavy shield. You could use that.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, go on.
And war lance, that's all.
And none of it stands out as superior or better.
No. In fact, your Castle Forged axe is pretty rare.
Yeah.
I don't even know the rules for how you said that you bought one.
I paid for it.
Yeah, I don't know how that rule works. I haven't looked it up. But no, that's
twice the normal cost.
Okay.
And you have to have a minimum. I think there's a minimum on how much, whatever that thing is, your prestige or standing or whatever.
Influence?
Status,
Status?
Yeah, there's a minimum status to even buy them a character generation.
Okay, well, if it's status 4, then you're good. Otherwise, we'll let it go anywhere regardless. But that means, that's fine because that gives you like a house heirloom kind of weapon. That's cool.
So what would be the weapon difference for the heavy shield versus
a heavy shield is defense 4 instead of defense 2.
Okay.
And bulk 1.
Yeah, and I'll worry about that.
Okay.
In between games, I'll I've got my little table that I will fill out and make sure all the numbers are right and show it to everybody so we're all on the same page with that.
Okay. All right. So the rest of the stuff will get divvied up amongst who needs it, and the rest will just come back with us, I guess.
Okay. What about the money? You want to give the money out?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we'll just divide that up amongst. I'm trying to remember who was there.
Well, it was Benjamin. If you're talking about your royal family, or not, other than the royal family, Benjamin, Maina, who was the prisoner, and Corlin was it. And then you've got yourself, Jenna, and Will.
Okay, I think we're all right with money, so I'll just divvy it up amongst Corlin and Benjamin.
Yeah, okay. So you guys all get some cash.
Awesome.
So you each get 2 gold dragons, about 40 silver stags, and 12 copper pennies. Benjamin, those suits of mail are better than the ring mail that you're wearing.
Okay.
So you can exchange your ring mail for mail.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, and just to be clear, Corlin, I wanted you to have a horse, so you just had a horse for travel purposes. I know you wouldn't use it in combat.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It's like I don't need a war horse, just a regular riding horse is perfectly fine.
Well, you can always, if you want a regular riding horse, you can always sell the roundsea or trade it.
Yeah, but I mean, having a war sword, even if I don't need one, is just an added bonus. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
James, did you need those numbers again? That money?
I was trying to do it in chat, not to just flow thing. I was hoping somebody else could just type it in. So.
There.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So you travel to the tournament, and you return, and your house gains some influence, and that's a month that goes by.
Yep.
As you remember, House Tanner puts on regular festivals every 3 months or so.
That's right.
This makes you very popular amongst the people. The people of Tannerton love House Tanner because they're always throwing parties.
I love the pebbles.
So one of those festivals, which is thrown every year, is the Festival of the Fires. And this is another old religious festival where, if you remember the old weirwood trees that used to fill these lands, the old ways eventually gave way to the 7. And to commemorate the 7, sacrifices were made of these weirwood trees. So the Andals and then the Targaryens and the other invaders would chop down all of these sacred groves, sacred to the old ways, and bring them to the local church, and they would be burnt in big ovens as a sacrifice to the smith, one of the 7 aspects of the faith. Well, there's no more weirwood trees because we burnt them all. So we don't do that anymore. But we still have this ritual sort of festival in which we gather wood, bring it into town, and strip it all down, and put it into ovens and bake it for 7 days to make charcoal. And during that time, it's a religious holiday. And there's lots of fire rituals, like, jumping over fireplaces and all these kinds of old customs. And it's an honor of the smith. So a lot of it's a time to honor blacksmiths and craftsmen of all kinds. And people that live in the wood, that work in the woods, like Corlin, are often very busy during the festival because they've got a lot of trees to chop down and bark to strip and so on. A lot of lumber to move. But it's a big religious holiday. And that's the festival coming up. And that'll be like the second month. Now, the way that that the house fortunes roll works is higher is better, but there are bad numbers still thrown in amongst the high numbers. So you're more likely to get a positive result if you roll really high on house fortunes, but you have to. But there's always a chance it can still be negative. But the negative, the bad luck is less common the higher up you go on the table. And the way it works is you in this case Garrett already rolled, and I would just roll randomly to determine what happens to the house. In this case, let's see, what did I get? So we'll just roll. I'm going to pull up my my roll number here and our chat room, and I'll just roll a die 7 to determine what house characteristic gets modified. See if I can remember how to do this. At roll D7. That what I'm doing? Okay, we got a 4, so I can look at the house stats. 1, 2, 3 is law. Number 4 is law. And this is a random thing. It's going to go up by 1 die 3. So I'll roll a die 3. Got a 1. So your law goes up by 1. That's probably something like Benjamin. You're out leading a patrol. You guys interrupt like a bandit raid, and you track the bandits down and capture one of the bandit leaders.
Awesome.
And you turn the bandit leader in for justice. Ricard, what happens to him?
He is. This is a different bandit leader. He's killed
Okay, how do you want to execute him?
with my axe.
Okay.
Standard beheading's a normal execution, right? I suppose I could hang him.
There are, this is Westeros. There's a million ways to kill a man.
Yeah. All right. So instead of that,
There's so much fire around right now. Like just toss him on a
It's effective
bonfire.
use of resources. Efficiency.
yeah, I'll hang him from a tree with bandit sign around his neck. Let him rot in the wind for a while.
There is a hanging tree
Excellent.
several hours away. It's not like near. It's not in town, but there is a famous hanging tree in the area. People kind of avoid it. It's generally considered to be haunted, but you know, fuck it.
Haunted.
Yeah.
I'll hang him from the tree.
Okay.
You have a hanging tree. You use the hanging tree.
It's kind of the regional hanging tree. It's not actually in your lands, but it's an unclaimed land because nobody wants. It might be cursed.
Oh, unclaimed land, you say?
Yeah. It's actually near the inn. It's near the inn at the crossroads, which is also unclaimed land. But we'll let me see if I can. The hanging tree. Find it. Heron's Justice is the name of it. I'll put it in the chat window. Heron's Justice was established by the family of Heron, which Heron Hall is named after. 3 centuries ago, Heron the Black hung iron gibbets from this giant oak tree. It's completely dead. Grows no leaves on it. But the trunk hasn't collapsed and the lower branches are still strong. There aren't very many families that still use the tree for hanging, but You're apparently one of them.
Nobody else used the tree. It's unclaimed land.
Unclaimed land, an unused tree.
Just needs a little gentrifying, and we can really spruce it up. Like,
All right, every time we come this way, we bring a stone with them. Eventually, we'll have a wall.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. All right. Let's see. Does anyone have history? Like knowledge? Who's got knowledge? Anybody have knowledge over 2?
Nope.
I do.
Corlin? I mean, Will?
I have 3, but not history specialization.
You know that there was a famous brigand named Gerald Blackbow who was drawn and quartered here after his capture. There used to be a headman's axe like block here, a stone where executioners would ply their trade. He was drawn and quartered here, and then they just tied his limbless body to the trunk to warn off anybody else who might think to disobey their lords. You head out there, and then you want to hang him, or do you want to put him in a gibbet? If you know do you know what a gibbet is? It's like an iron cage,
Right? Yeah.
where you just leave him to starve to death.
No. Because then people wander by and free him. So we'll hang him.
Okay. All right.
I've seen Willow.
Indeed, you have. All right. You hang him. He hangs until dead. The body twists in the wind for several days, and word spreads of the Lord's justice, and your law score goes up by 1 to 23. One afternoon, you're in Tanner Hall, and you get word of a visitor. A young man, maybe about Will's age, with medium-length black hair and kind of a pale complexion, fairly slender, wearing nondescript black clothing. He's wearing a ring that is probably the only thing that looks like it might be of value, really. And he enters with a servant. He enters the hall. And the servant steps forward and introduces Daveth Barnell, stepson of Lord Thomas Barnell. Asks the hospitality of House Tanner. Have you guys looked at the maps? If you look in our folder, I'm going to give you a couple of links for the maps. One is a little bit more detailed and complicated than the other. But these maps give you an idea of your neighbors. And one of them's got hexes on it and all kinds of political outlines. The other one doesn't. They're the same map, other than that. If you look at the map, you will see that Tannerton is in the middle at the intersection of some roads. Excuse me. And to your north is a castle named Castle Grenward. That is the home of House Barnell. House Barnell is the same age as your house. In fact, Ricard, you know Lord Barnell. You don't know him very well, but you fought in some of the same battles together. And you got your family houses at about the same time. His name is Thomas Barnell. And Thomas was also a hedge knight, like you. But whereas you were serving the Tullys, Thomas Barnell was serving the Starks. He was serving Ned Stark. And he fought with you, alongside you, at the Battle of the Ruby Ford, when Robert Baratheon killed Prince Rhaegar and ended the line of the Targaryens. And for his various heroic activities, he saved the life of Ned. There was a spear coming in at Ned, and Thomas took it. And for this, he was rewarded with noble status.
Cool.
How far is this castle from us?
Okay, so look at the hex map. Every hex is 3 miles, which means roughly 1 hour of travel time moves you 1 hex on the map. Okay? That means this is a really small area.
Yeah, so they're not even more than a day's ride.
No, they're like 8 hours, 9 hours away.
So I'd be curious why he's asking us to stay, essentially, when he could get back to his castle, correct?
Well, presumably he's just visiting. But yes.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that we discover in Westeros is that noble houses, the lands owned by most noble houses, are very small. There are exceptions, especially up north, because the north is as big as all the rest of Westeros. Like, you can cut the map in half, basically. The north has a lot of land, but most people, especially down here in the Riverlands, have these tiny little pocket realms. So you can see that your lands, the lands of House Tanner, you know, you can ride completely across them in 5 hours.
Sure.
Very briefly, since we have the map up, you can see Durain's Forest to your north. There is no lord over that land. It is infested with bandits. It has been home to outlaws for literally centuries.
Right, and I want to figure out a way to take it.
But there was a lord about a generation ago. The Targaryens appointed somebody to Rhaegar Hold, the castle in the middle of Durain's Forest, but they weren't able to keep it. They were all slaughtered. Then above them, you'll see Barnell, the lands of Barnell, held by Castle Greenward. You see the inn at the crossroads, which is intentionally left unclaimed. It's apparently has some kind of dispensation to stay independent.
Oh.
Then you will see your neighbor, your immediate rivals, House Root, is to your east. Your lands used to be House Root lands, but Root's properties were divided in half, and you guys got the better half, and they got stuck with the worst half.
Not
And
sure that. I was gonna say that probably did not make them happy.
No, that did not make them happy at all, because they used to have the town. Now they had that little village instead. Farther beyond House Root is House Howick. They have a town called Salt Pans, which is on the river. It's a port, but it's off the map. Continuing our roughly clockwise tour, you can see the lands of House Barteld to the south. This is Hart House, Hartville, and the little village of South Yard. Will, you've probably been to Hart House. Hart House is famous for its hospitality. It welcomes guests from all over, no matter what your excuse or reason. They put people up who are fleeing their home situations. So sometimes, like, people fleeing arranged marriages come here. People who've done bad things in their house run here to lie low for a while. People who've earned the displeasure of the king run to Hart House. And there's a lot of parties. It's a festive place. It's got vineyards behind the house. They have a number of famous wine labels come out of House Bartelt. And my hunch is that just knowing by Will's pleasure in social activities, he's probably visited.
Yeah, they're really good people.
Yeah, there you go. And then you can see a small land held by Derry, including a castle, Castle Derry. Derry used to be a very famous and powerful house, which has slowly declined over the generations. So that's all that they have left. And then even farther south, you can see Harrenhal. Harrenhal is a very famous location in Game of Thrones. It's a fantastically huge castle handed down from like 6 different families over the centuries. Every family who's been given it has died out. It's bad luck. And then finally, on your border, your northwestern border, is Riverthorn. Riverthorn also has no lord right now, but for a different reason. Riverthorn has been stricken by plague, and most of the people there died in plague, including the entire noble family. So Rose Hall, which used to be the fortress there, is now empty and abandoned. And a lot of the farms that used to fill Riverthorn have all gone fallow because the survivors have fled, most of them. And like nobody wants to risk the plague. So the road passes right through it. So people really hurry through that part of the road.
All right.
So you have a visitor. You have Daveth Barnell.
Of course. What do we owe the honor?
Daveth steps forward and he says, I thank you for your hospitality. I am merely trying to renew the friendship between my family and the houses of this area. And with your permission, I will stay the night and enjoy the festival. And perhaps we can get better acquainted.
Of course.
But first, and he snaps his finger, and his servant brings up a small wooden box, and he gestures, and the box is brought up by the servant to Ricard.
Oh, interesting. I open the box. How big of a box is it?
It's about this big.
Okay.
It is a cloak clasp of gold with a big fat ruby right in the center. And Davith says, a small token, my lord, of our mutual history. That ruby was shattered off of Prince Aegon's breast by Robert Baratheon at the Battle of the Ruby Ford. This is a famous legend. You were there. Rhaegar, Prince Rhaegar had this suit of armor which was decorated with like hundreds of rubies, like covering his chest. Well, Robert Baratheon uses a warhammer. So every time he hit that chest, like rubies just flew off of the guy's armor into the river. And after the battle was over, like everybody was searching through the river for rubies. People still do. This is not far, by the way. This is like a half a day's ride from Canterton. So Davith says that the ruby in that is from that battle, from that where you were. You were there.
Will is thinking, oh, I have just the cloak for that. It would just go perfectly.
Nice.
But he's biting his tongue. Eyes wide.
Nice.
Oh, you honored me, sir. This is wonderful.
He smiles, clearly pleased. He doesn't have a lot of money. Like, you can tell, like, he's not dressed in rich clothing. This guy is like, he's dressed like an ordinary guy. Like, you would mistake him for a peasant if he didn't talk well.
Well, you're certainly welcome to the festivities, and we'll be having a festival dinner later. You're welcome to join us.
I'd be honored.
How was your father?
My stepfather is...
Did I know that?
Yes.
You say that?
Yes.
Okay.
My stepfather is, well, in good health. He works eagerly for the military defense of House Barnell.
Excellent. It's good to hear.
Is there a way we can kind of like? Is there a way we can kind of roll to get a sense of if he may be uncomfortable when he's talking about that? Like, are we getting an impression?
You can always roll awareness, empathy.
I just have awareness.
Yeah, roll awareness. You're attacking his passive, probably. Well, you're attacking a passive number, probably his deception, if he wants to hide how he feels.
12.
What is his deception? I think 12 might be exactly what you need, actually. He's really courteous and very polite, and so it's really hard for you to get a read on him, but you're good at this, and you decide that he really doesn't really admire his father very much, his stepfather. When he said that his stepfather was seeing to the military defense of House Barnell, that's true, you suspect, but you don't think that Davith necessarily thinks that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't approve of his stepfather's behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you get. He retires. Do you guys have you guys arrange some rooms for him in the castle, or shall he get a room at the inn?
We'll arrange room for him here.
Okay.
And I want him treated very well.
Okay. You have some guest rooms at the house, at the hall. It's not super large. It's not a castle, but you do have some guest rooms. So you put him up there. His servant stays with your servants.
Okay.
We just want to do anything before, like, probably the feast that night, it sounds like?
Yeah. Now, would it be customary for me to return a gift or give a gift in exchange?
Well, it's not required. I mean, you certainly could. It would be, it's all about, like, there's no, like, traditional honor. Like, there's no, like, I have to give him something or I'm shamed. That's not true. If you want to give him something, you could. You don't have to. It's totally up to you. The main custom that we're observing here is hospitality, which is a big deal in Westeros. You basically promise to take care of him and protect him as long as he's in your house.
Right. And at this point right now, I want to improve my relationship with that house.
Yep.
And that's kind of a big goal.
Right. Yeah. Why don't you, if you want to, you got a feast to arrange, which sounds like a good role of stewardship.
Okay, so I have stats of 4.
Yep.
And a stewardship of 2. So I roll.
Well, 6.
Take
6
4
keep 4.
Mm. 14.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. 17.
17. Oh,
yeah.
Much better. Okay. I forget what the difficulty number is for 15, but pretty high. You throw an impressive feast. Everybody is there. Corlin, Benjamin, and Will. Davos seems impressed. You get the feeling that his house is not as wealthy as yours. he chats socially. The situation with his family, his mother had a son, had him from a previous husband. So that's why he's not related to his stepfather. But the Lord Barnell himself had a son who was a bastard. So there's a little bit of an inheritance crisis in House Barnell. The older son is the bastard, and Davith, the stepson, is legitimate. And the heir has not been named.
I see.
He does not say all this. This is stuff that you already know. They're your next door neighbors. You know this.
Yeah, well, I'll talk with him, find out what I can glean, I guess. But I'm not going to really push anything.
Okay. Well, he tells you some of the news. The bandits out of Durian's Forest have gotten more bold than ever. They struck travelers on the King's Road, which few would dare to do. They're led by a man named Dugan the Red.
Well, we're going to have to do something about that.
My stepfather is eager to take arms against them, but the other demands of the house have so far kept him from action.
Okay. Oh, well, then I'll see. I'll find out how we can work together on this and what we can come to.
I'm sure we can. You seem like a very reasonable and sober man, if I may say, Lieutenant. He's going to intrigue you.
Uh-oh.
Well, but everybody is there. You're all at the same table. So if anybody else wants to get involved in the intrigue, you can.
God, Will, it's your time to shine.
Yeah, I've shined already. Remember that tent action?
I'm not sure that your 10 action is the same 10 action I'm thinking of, but yes.
Yeah, I think you actually did more than the knight Deborah's character actually managed to pull off.
If that was my fault, I made Benjamin run all over the battle.
I would have been more than happy to cut the guy's head off if Will hadn't been able to do it. So
she should have gotten an endurance increase, like a die increase for all that running she did in that.
Yep, you ran 50 yards.
So if you want your character to get faster, best way is buy running bonus dice. They're 10 XP.
I need you guys to decide what your disposition is towards Davith. If you remember, we're on page 143. There's 7, basically a ranking of disposition, with indifferent in the middle. Affectionate, like you love him, is number 1. And you hate him and want to kill him is number 7. And you can decide where on that scale you feel towards him. It's totally up to you. Sort of presumably most people are indifferent the first time you meet somebody.
I'm amiable because I'm thinking about that ruby.
Yeah, there you go.
And how happy I am that he brought that into our house, because I'm going to work on Ricard until that ruby is mine.
What's that, Garrett?
How happy you'll be to see your father wearing it.
Yes. All right, so Will is amiable.
I'm also amiable.
Also amiable? Okay. If the rest of you guys, I only have to know if you only have to decide on a disposition if you're entering into the intrigue. If you're not, and I presume that Corlin and Benjamin are not, you don't have to pick a disposition, but you still can if you want to note. Dispositions are something that you end up kind of keeping track of as the character goes on through the game, because your disposition that you have towards him now is what you will still have towards him the next time you meet him. Okay. this gives you you have DR3 against any kind of influence he tries to do. You have no modifier to perception, and he gets a +1 on persuasion modifiers on you because you already kind of like him.
Okay.
Figure out if you want to try to intrigue him, you can figure out what your goal is. Like, for example, Garrett, you were thinking, well, you're going to try to get some information out of him. That can be a goal for you.
Yeah,
right?
I want my goal would be to get the numbers and morale and whatnot of his men.
Oh, nice. Very good. Yes. Okay. That's a nice specific goal. So I'm looking at 142 where it lists objectives. In your case, information. Will, any particular objective with this guy?
I don't think so. I'm here in support of Rickard's
Okay, good.
goals.
All right. So you wanna aid. You're gonna be aiding your dad.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So now you pick initiative. First, we can roll initiative, and this is a status test. Any of your bonus dice from reputation add. Otherwise, just roll status.
I don't think I have anything for reputation. Uh, 16.
Well, you by far get better than him. So you go first. His family's status is lower than yours. And he's not even the heir or the head of the house, so he's even lower. So you go first. And so then you get to decide kind of what you want to try to do. So you've got techniques. And those are all on 146 to 147. So most of them we can rule out. The trick is we want to figure out what your goal is to get information out of him. So you could do that with convince.
Yeah. Well, I have a specialty in convince with persuasion.
All right. So you might, for example, say, well, I can help you defeat those bandits. Maybe you can tell me what your military force, and convince is being honest, right? Although you can fake it. You can do it with deception if you want. But largely you basically be honest. You say, well, tell me how many men does he have? And what kind of men, what kind of training do they have? And you just basically ask him and you convince him to tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you get to do that's your technique. He is using a technique that he chooses. And then, which you don't know, he doesn't know yours either. And then we get to the actual actions where you decide what are you going to do. I think that Will is assisting.
Yes.
And you'll be rolling persuasion to give some of you'll roll first, and then your father will roll. And if you succeed, you'll give a bonus to him. And then Ricard is using influence, unless you want to use some other fancy maneuver. But to basically try to convince him to tell you what you want him to do, you have to beat his composure. You have to convince him. And to do that, you will influence him. And he is doing an action of his own as well. But you go first. So first, let's get Will roll persuasion to assist.
Do I roll my bonus on because I get a bonus against characters with status 3 or under? Do I roll that as well?
Let me see. In this case, yeah.
Okay. $21.
All right, so you by far succeeded. So you lend 1/2 of your persuasion rank. That would be 2, right? If we round down.
Yes.
So you add 2 to whatever Ricard rolls. Okay. Which is, you would get a lot higher than that, but you're not the one being intrigued, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if he was talking with you, you generate a huge number.
I charmed the hell out of him.
Yeah, you can. You charm the hell out of him. Charm his pants off. All right, so now, Ricard, you roll. And you're rolling convince. So you roll persuasion, convince. And you get a +2 bonus for your son.
15.
Okay. He subtracts whatever damage resistance he's get from his disposition. And no, sorry, that's not right. You have to hit his number. I forgot. You have to hit his intrigue defense. And his intrigue defense is 9. So you rolled a 15, you said?
Yep.
So you basically hit twice.
Yep.
By the way, a brief correction. In a previous game session, I think when Corlin shot somebody and got some incredibly high astronomical number, it turns out there's a cap on how many successes you can get, and that cap is 4.
Right.
So you can't hit a guy more than 4 times with 1 die roll.
Okay.
All right. So you hit him twice. So what is your effect with convince is your will rank. So what's your will?
My will is 4.
Oh wow, you're very strong-willed.
Yes.
Okay, so that 4 doubles is 8. That's how much damage you do. That's how much you do to his composure. He subtracts some of that for his armor, his own disposition, but he takes some composure damage. I won't tell you how much. But you can see that you are persuading him. Do you want to role play any of that? Sort of tell me what you're doing when you talk to him.
I don't know how to put it. How?
Just be honest. That's what convince is.
Right. So how's the morale of his troops?
Oh, my lord's men are unflinchingly loyal to him. You know, the company of the Morning Star, his personal guard, have been fought with him ever since Robert's rebellion. They are some of the strongest soldiers in this region. I confess I have little interest in military matters, but he's very proud of them and has spent large amounts of our treasury keeping them well outfitted.
Oh, that's excellent. I wasn't questioning their loyalty, just, how things are going in general.
He's going to roll his intrigue on you. He's rolling. Let me see what he can get here. He's rolling. Let me see. I have to look up. James showed me how to do die rolls here. Okay. He gets a 15. What is your intrigue defense?
8.
So he hits you twice. He does 8 influence on you. Your armor is 3 for amiable, so you take 5.
Okay.
And he's just being charming. Will, you recognize this right away. He's just trying to make friends. So he gives answers to Ricard's questions and flatters him and asks. He says, "Oh, tell me the story of your battles with the old Mad King. My father tells it many times, but I've always sort of thought that he made himself look good and unjustly."
That's the point of telling stories. You can make it.
So anyway, he's just trying to basically make friends with you,
right?
And he does.
Is he trying to do this on behalf of his stepfather or for himself?
No, he's trying to improve your disposition towards him.
Oh, okay.
That's an interesting idea. The idea that he could make you be friends with someone else. I don't know how. I don't know if there's strictly speaking that would be something a maneuver would allow him to do, but it sounds like a good idea that maybe we could work on a house rule for that.
It seems like it should be something because, like, leaders will send people in their behalf
Yeah.
all the time.
So you have a composure score.
Yes.
You took 5 against that.
Oh.
How much have you got left?
I have 7 left.
Okay.
So that would be intrigue damage, right?
Yes, that's composure. Yeah, intrigue damage. And then we go to round 2.
Excellent.
You go again, as does Will.
All right.
Will, you gonna assist him again, or do you want to try something else?
I'm going to be assisting.
Okay. Go ahead and roll your persuasion again.
19.
Yeah, easily. Okay, so Garrett, you have another +2 when you roll your intrigue attack.
I did roll it, and that'll bring me to 19.
Okay, so that's his intrigue defense is 9, so you hit him 3 times this time. So multiply your will by 3.
All right. That would be 12.
Okay, so all right, so you influence him. You succeed.
Oh, excellent.
You added up enough damage to overcome his composure. And he basically tells you, he decides that, in an attempt to continue to win your friendship, he gives you some basic stats of like what his house's military is.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you what they are. I'll put them in the chat window and you can take notes. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Sound
that's fine.
His house has, I believe, 3 military units. Let me pull them up. 4. The Company of the Morning Star is personal guard. Company Grenward is the garrison of the castle.
What was the name of that company?
It's the name of the castle. I'm putting it in the
Okay. All right.
in the chat window.
No, wait.
Castle Grenward, Company Grenward is the garrison of the castle. Then he has the River Road Riders, which is a cavalry unit, about the same as your cavalry unit in size, about 20 men and horses. And then finally, he keeps a group of siege engineers. Ooh. Jarian's siege engineers. And if you all of this adds up to about 320 men and horses. And some horses. So his army is larger than yours by about 100 men.
Okay.
And you yourself know that the Company of the Morning Star is an elite unit. The rest of the units, he can't really speak to their quality because he's not really well enough trained to know.
Sure. But they seem happy in general. His impression of them.
Oh yeah, it says yeah. My stepfather treats them all very well.
Good.
He values military might more than anything. So his soldiers know that they are foremost in his thoughts. I think he can continue influencing you to try to improve your disposition unless you leave or end the intrigue.
No, we can keep going.
Okay. He's gonna try again. So he's gonna roll his charm.
Normally, I would just cut this off, but since you want to do intrigue, we're gonna go forward.
That's all right. You got a 21. So what's your intrigue defense?
8.
Okay, so he beat you on 8, 13, and 18. He got 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So he does 12 minus 3, you take 9. Which is enough, right? Because you said you had 7 left.
Yeah.
All right, so what he did is he improved your disposition towards him
Okay.
by 1 step. So now you are no longer amiable towards him. You are friendly. Kinship and goodwill. Like as if he was like your brother or a longtime ally.
That's a big jump from amiable. But that's fine.
Well,
That's
There's
fine.
a lot of wine involved. It's you know how that goes.
the point is that you're willing to do him favors and you may take risks on his behalf. He's a friend of yours. He's your friend.
All right.
And there you go. So he's a friend of yours. You can decide how serious that is. Okay. Anybody else want to do anything while you have your guest? Okay. He stays the night. Keeps to himself. Spends a lot of time. He retires after the feast and does some reading in his rooms. If your master was here, he would be meeting with the Meister, but we'll presume that because Gary can't join us, that your Meister is off traveling or something.
In true Game of Thrones fashion, I'll have a young woman sent to his room.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Wow. All right. Boy, you really do like him, don't you? All right. Gosh. So is there like a prostitution den in town where you get these women? Or you just you order one of the serving girls to go to his room?
That's a great question, because I wonder about that every time I watch Game of Thrones, where these women
Where does this girl come from? I'm not saying you can't do it.
I'm going to say that we have a small house whose repute is ill.
Okay. In the town. Yeah, there's a small whorehouse in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
we have a festival 4 times a year. There's money.
Yeah. Okay. So I have no problem. I'm glad that now we know, and this will become a set piece. I'm certain it is inevitable that we will have a scene in the whorehouse soon. It's inevitable.
My kind of game.
I like how this works out. It's like now we know why the town is always having festivals.
And why we're so popular.
All right. So you have the whorehouse send up someone, and you pay the bill, and you have her sent to Davith's room.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, you do so. The next day, Davith thanks you for your warm and generous hospitality.
Trying to bring on space.
He looks forward to seeing you. He says, I am continuing on my journey to Hart House, where they are welcoming to all visitors. Perhaps I'll see you there one day.
No, certainly hope so.
In the meantime, I will carry. Do you have any message for my father?
Yeah, Jason. I meant to do this. I want to write him a message opening negotiations for dealing with the jerkwad in the.
Just write it, and send it to me email after the game.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
He'll take your message and bring it back to his stepfather. Okay. Time passes. Does anybody want to spend any of their glory or do anything else as we pass another month? Okay.
Just saying, throw some glory into power. We could be better archers.
After the game, I'm going to send you some email, Jason, about some questions about what's going on around me.
Yep.
More specific detail. That'll help me decide how to spend
Yep. Remember that a lot of that stuff you may just not know. Like, there's not a lot of rapid communication. If someone isn't sending a raven, it's kind of hard to know what's going on in the nearby kingdoms.
Mhm.
And visiting other places and asking and finding out is always a good way to go.
Right.
I'm gonna spend a glory on law. I'm thinking
Okay.
that I've been, there are these growing problems with bandits, and I'm a man of the people, and I got wind that there were some bandits that had been sneaking into Tannerton and kind of using, frequenting the taverns, and in proper will fashion, I formed a bit of a bond with them and convinced them to turn and arrange jobs with them.
Is this like a Falstaff, Prince Hal thing?
Yeah, so I've formed a bond, and I've shown them the light, and convinced them that they can, whatever they were gaining by being bandits, that there's a more honest life for them in Tannerton.
All right, now word begins to spread that the heir is cavorting with bandits in the tavern. Making friends with men of ill repute. And they're having a uproarious good time. He probably had to spend a lot of money on their bar bills.
Good. He's doing exactly what I like him to do.
Get in trouble.
That Garrett likes him to do.
Yes. All right, very good. You guys get a raven with an invitation to visit Hart House from the lady, whose name is Aelith. I'll put her name in the chat window. Her name is Aelith of House Barteld. You get the impression that this is going out to a lot of the houses in the region. Maybe you met her, like you probably saw her at the tournament.
Okay.
Hart House is about 5 hours away to the south.
Then we will go.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you thought I meant Hart House?
To the wall.
I do have a book for that. I'm just not prepped for it.
We all throw our arms up in the air, leave, and take the black.
Okay.
Venturing into the north wouldn't be bad.
I don't think Will does. I think the rest of you all go north, and Will just takes over.
I'm not taking the black. Screw that.
About a month passes, and eventually you guys just get your house in order, and you have a few days off, and so you head south to enjoy the hospitality of Hart House. If we look at the map, it's almost due south of you. It is due south of you. You cross farms and fields for about an hour. Then you enter into wooded hills, and you actually approach Hart House from the north. So you go up into some slopes, like it's in highlands. You travel through, you know that you're close when you find the vineyards. You see a tower not far off in the distance. And then you go through a small village of small folk that service this area. And you come up on Hartville from the sort of back door. Because there's a road that leads from Hartville down the slope towards South Yard. And you guys come up the back way. You probably encounter some woodsmen, but once they realize that you're the Tanners, they are very deferential towards you. And you arrive at Hart House. It's not a castle at all. It is a very large stone hall, decorated with antlers everywhere. You know that the Barthelds are bannermen of House Baratheon. The original leader of the house, Brom Bartheld, Brom Bartheld was the latest in a long line of distinguished family members of House Bartheld but they were not landholders. They were knights, but they were not landholders. And they served the Baratheons for generations, like 200 years. And they were very close to the Baratheons. There was some intermarriage between them, and they were very much loyal servants. And so much so that the legend went that House Baratheon refused to give them noble status because they want to just take advantage of their labor. But finally, in the rebellion, in Robert's Rebellion, the War of the Usurper, Brom distinguished himself in battle and was finally rewarded with noble status. And he was given Hart House. Brom is still alive, but he is no longer in charge. Brom got old, and he's a grandfather now. And he gave up Hart House. He abdicated about 5 years ago to go off to another noble house, apparently to pursue some young girl. Like he's supposedly fallen in love with this teenager, and he's trying to woo her. House Kitely, I think it's called. They're nowhere near here. They're off in the mountains. Anyway, he gave the house and all of his property over to his grandson, whose name is Devane. I'll put that in the chat window. Lord Devane Bartheld, who's about Will's age. And you have not met Devane. He was not at the tournament. But Will, you know that you've seen Devane a couple of times as you've visited Hart House, and he is not like his grandfather. He's boring, reserved. He doesn't like to drink. He's a blacksmith by hobby, and he dresses in very severely. And he's changed a lot of the habits at Hart House. So all of the really pretty serving girls have been replaced with like middle-aged men. He doesn't let the hunters go out with barrel full of wineskins like they used to. He's kind of a big downer. But his wife, Aelith, is still sort of trying to keep the hospitality of the house going, because it's really one of the main assets to the house. It's how they're known, and how they get things done is by serving a role, and that role is the place you go when you have to hide from from your noble families.
Sure.
And you arrive. There's festivities going on. It's the hall is grand and magnificent. It's basically just a very, very large stone building with a beautiful floor decorated with black and white marble. There's antlers everywhere in honor of House Baratheon. A massive, like, three-sided table all the way around the hall where there's dozens of courtiers and visitors from houses throughout Westeros, all basically engaging in a 24-hour feast. And you are announced by a herald who politely asks who you are and where you're from. And then, he recognizes Will. Never mind. The herald recognizes Will. Ah, Master Tanner, and you brought your family. We are truly honored.
Wouldn't miss it. The wine here. I mean, I've heard you've got some new vintages debuting at this party, and I'm ready to go wild.
Now, you do remember the directions of how to get to the cellar. Now, in the past, there have been, as you know, a large number of, shall we say, secret meetings in the cellar.
Mm-hmm.
So many so that my old lord, Sir Lord Brom, used to suggest he should leave a basket full of blankets and pillows by the door to the cellar.
Yeah, that was a great idea. Are you trying to tell me that the times have changed?
But I'm afraid that the new lord has cracked down on those old habits. So Please try to mind your P's and Q's. I'll introduce you. And he steps up to the gallery and announces Lord Roderick Tanner, his son Willem Tanner, and their privileged retainers. And there's some of the courtiers nearby to you sort of notice you and, you know, try to get your attention, or maybe they inspect you. You see a lot of read target actions. That's the intrigue action where they try to, you know, sort of figure out what you're thinking and doing. You see a lot of that happening. But other people, they don't, you know, they're too busy with their own business to catch you. But you see a woman who can only be Lady Aelith. Hears the herald announce you, and she sort of glides over to your presence. Willem, Aelith is one of the most beautiful women you've ever met. She's in her early 20s. She's from House Swan, which is famous for its beautiful daughters. She's got very pale skin, hair that's so blonde it looks almost white in the right light. And she always wears one of two kinds of things. She's either wears like really light, kind of gauzy clothes that help accent her sort of ephemeral angelicness, or she wears really dark, sort of richly contrasting colors to get really dramatic. And that's what she's wearing tonight. So she's wearing like this really dark scarlet gown trimmed in black, which pops off of her really pale complexion and platinum blonde hair. And she glides over and very delicately offers her hand to Ricard and says, Lord Tanner, at last, I have heard so much about you.
And I've heard about you. I do the appropriate thing with her hand.
Okay, you have to roll.
What's your appropriate thing, though?
You're rolling breeding. So status breeding, if you've got it.
Please tell me it's really low. I've never wanted someone to fail on a roll as much as this one.
16. I'm sorry, 17.
I do the appropriate thing with her hand. If you roll really low, we can all take a guess on what the appropriate thing you think is.
Right. I rolled really high. So.
But instead, you rolled a 17. So you very decorously take her hand and don't actually kiss it, but just sort of take it up near your lip, you sort of bow over it,
right,
and release her at the appropriate courteous time. And she notes your courtesy. Please make yourselves at home. Introduce me to your retainers.
Yeah, well, this is, well, you know my son William. Indeed,
I do.
Naturally. Nice to meet you again. This is a wonderful party. This is off the hook here.
I've laid a bottle of our new vintage aside for you. I know that you're looking forward to it.
Oh God, thank you. I've the whole way here. I've just been in my mind.
Well, I'm glad to have you back. My cousin Fendrel is eager to see you again. Fendrel is actually Davane's cousin. Let me put his name here. Fendrel Barteld is the heir. Aelith and Davane do not have any kids. Instead, Davane's older cousin is the heir to House Barteld. And he's much more like Brom was. He's much more of a partier. Willem, you know that Fendrel has he's very knowledgeable in the whorehouses of the Riverlands. He has a meticulous memory for remembering every woman in every whorehouse north of King's Landing and south of the Wall, and he has sampled all of them.
Sounds like a little Robert in training.
Yeah, except yeah. He's not as fat.
Mm-hmm.
In training.
In training.
So, Corlin in this situation, so, he eventually get introduced, I assume.
Yeah, I'll introduce Benjamin, my guard, and Corlin.
Nice to see you again, my lady.
Benjamin.
Many times with your son.
Oh, you have? Okay, so you like escort Willem here?
Yeah, I am an escort, so.
Very good. Okay, yes, all right. So you all right, good. So you know Fendrel rather, but you also know there's a knight currently staying here. Let me put his name in the chat window as well. Sir Corbin Celtigar. Also something of a ladies' man. He
Sir Corbin that we already killed or sent to the
That was
wall.
Corbin.
different. That was Corvin with a V.
Okay.
And we've got Corvin, Corlin, and Corbin. In this case, Corbin with a B. He's quite the ladies' man, which is weird because he's not very attractive, but he's very funny and sociable, and he's kind of self-deprecating, and he's good at making friends and kind of charming women. Even though he's not particularly attractive, he's kind of got sort of a squished face and a kind of squinky eye, but battle scar on his chin, on his forehead.
Okay.
But every time that you've been here with Will, he's like, Brad, he's like found you. He's decided you're like his perfect wingman. So he gets you to like help him go pick up girls, usually by him like complimenting you on how brave and heroic you are. And then they get turned off. They aren't interested in that. They look at him instead. And that's when he plays the move on them. So.
I'm glad I can help.
We wear Benjamin down. He is initially very, he can be a bit of a buzzkill, but as the night wears on, he just defends his composure inevitably dips.
Towards them, I'm good.
Yeah. So I was thinking that Benjamin might actually accompany Lord Tanner, and I would accompany Will.
Well, you can certainly come with them, but I think.
Well, we had decided earlier that I was kind of his companion when he would go out to like the inn and stuff.
Corlin, you might be guarding. You might guard Jenna when she travels. Okay. But you can certainly have visited Hart House. Anybody can. But that's the thing about this place is that anybody can visit. So.
Okay.
So has Corlin been here before?
I would say that maybe he's been here before, but he doesn't come here very often.
Okay.
It's not his kind of thing.
Okay.
So.
Aelith recognizes you, and she says, Master Corlin, you might be pleased to know we are planning a hunt tomorrow.
Excellent.
Perhaps you can assist your lord in our hunt and help to bring him some glory.
Absolutely.
Well, I will leave all of you to it. Please enjoy yourselves. The Hart House is your home for as long as you wish to stay. And if I can assist you with anything, please don't hesitate to find me. We always have time for our noble neighbors.
Of course.
And she withdraws, watched by many of the men in the room. Anybody have anything you'd like to do while you are at Hart House?
Corlin is going to take this opportunity to look around for what was it in my backstory? So my family basically is trying to become merchants.
Oh,
right. So they have they're putting pressure on me to help them make connections. So I'd be trying to find people who might be, buying animals. So my family is trying to get into selling game and animals and stuff like that kind of business, hoping to get the Lord Tanner to back them eventually, right?
Okay.
So that would be.
Are we talking about like the like horses or hounds or falcons or? What kind of animals are you talking about?
I'm talking about like meat. They're butchers.
Oh, so you're like cattle herding.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're trying to set themselves up to be essentially butchers, like clearinghouses, buying animals to slaughter and sell.
Yes. Okay.
Which is something that's I picture this industry is just kind of getting started.
Yeah, I don't think they're really. We can't really call it an industry, but
yeah.
But yeah, you want to try to build like a slaughterhouse or something, like a stockyard.
Yeah, exactly. My family is thinking big. They think this is their big opportunity.
Right. Do they have a ranch, or are they not even that far yet?
No. But my family has been hunters and kind of field workers, animal workers, worked for other people.
Okay.
Took care of livestock and stuff for others. But they're trying to get this off the ground.
Right. Okay. Game-wise, if you wanted to create like cattle herds, you could do that by raising the house tanner's wealth, and you could buy like a house tanner cattle herd, and you would put it in the forested area in your lands, the light forest. Probably would cost about 10 points of wealth to buy. This is not that would be like a cattle herd that House Tanner actually benefits from. The money would go to House Tanner, at least partly. If you're talking about your own family, you wouldn't have to do that. I'm just.
Yeah, no. In this particular case, the point, just out of character, the point of the family being this is that my family is actually very greedy.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Really big.
Yeah.
And they don't actually have the means to start a slaughterhouse.
Right.
They might have the skills and some local contacts.
Yeah.
But they're really swinging way above their weight.
Yeah, kind of like castles in the sky.
Yeah, and they're putting a lot of pressure on me, like, hey, you're going to be going there. You gotta do your family and stuff. So I'm going to kind of reluctantly go around try to make contacts.
Okay.
I'm not very good at it, but that's what I'm doing.
Why don't you roll? You want to try like persuasion, or do you want to try and roll status, or how would you be doing this?
I would not be using status because I have basically. I'm not a peasant. I do have 2.
Yeah.
But that's the lowest that somebody who's important can have. So I'd be doing probably persuasion.
So you're basically rolling charm. Like you're sort of introducing yourself to people and trying to make a good impression.
Exactly. So I've got 2 dice, no bonus.
All right. Roll it.
All right. 8.
8. Okay.
Very impressive.
Yeah. There are a series of awkward moments where you try to work your way into a conversation. It generally doesn't go well. You get stared at a lot. Sometimes people just walk away from you. You realize that like they're all dressed in like these really elaborate sort of noble courtly clothes, and you're like in your woodsman garb, and you sort of obviously don't fit in. What's that?
I brushed it off.
Yeah, hey, like this is as good as it gets, man. But
I'm actually picturing the scene in The Knight's Tale.
Yes.
Like, oh, we need clothes for him for a dance.
Yeah, right.
And it's like one white shirt and like some brocaded vest, and he's like, oh, that's what we got. I picture Corlin's kind of the same. He's just kind of like a vest with some piping on it and his nicest shirt.
But as you're like introducing yourselves, and you see this girl like staring at you from around the corner. All you see is like her head and her hand as she is like peering out at you from around the corner. She's got this massive kind of unkempt head of blonde hair. She looks like she's, I don't know, probably she's younger than Will, like maybe in her mid-teens. And she's staring at you from this hallway.
if I don't know if I'm talking to anyone or whatever, but I'll basically once I see her, once I get free of whoever I'm talking to, most likely by them just moving off.
That's exactly what happens.
I'll just turn and kind of walk towards her. I'm not going to like bowl over people or whatever, but just kind of very purposely walk in her direction, looking at her the entire time.
Well, for about a second or so, he just watches you as you get closer. And you don't think her eyes can really get any wider because they're already about as wide as they can get. But then she just bolts. She runs away from you back down the hall. And when you arrive at the hallway, there's like the hallway stretches ahead of you, and there's a couple of doors, and the hallway sort of tees at the end. And she's in one of the doorways staring at you. And then she like runs across the hallway and farther away and then around a corner. She's dressed in like sort of green common clothes, you know, a tunic and skirt. She's barefoot. She looks like a wild girl or something. Fair-skinned. Pretty. She's very pretty, but in sort of a wild creature kind of way. And she dashes away from you and around another corner. Deeper into the house.
So I am not going to go into what would be typically considered a private area of someone's house.
Yep.
But on the flip side, I also see Corlin considering private areas of people's houses to be a lot smaller parts of their houses.
Yes.
Than maybe somebody who has a little bit more of a cultured upbringing.
Yes.
Might think. So if it's just a hallway, there's no doors, there's no guards.
Nope.
He's just going to follow her.
Okay.
Now he's curious. Like, who is this girl? I mean, clearly he's thinking, he's like 30. He's in his 30s. This is a young girl.
Yeah.
What is she doing running around? He's thinking.
Roll awareness.
Or a member of the family who's not supposed to be up.
Roll awareness, notice.
Awareness, notice. Now that I can do.
I know.
Yeah.
You got to hit her passive stealth.
All right. Let me go here. It's 5, keep 4. 14.
14. Okay. You follow her. You have to run. She's running.
I will run.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to be. I'll run at what I would consider a safe pace, as in I'll slow at corners so I don't run into somebody.
Yep. Okay.
Kind of relying on the fact that I'm going to be bigger. And
you run down the hall. You stop. You slow down at the corner. You like run around. You barely catch sight of her. Running through another room, like a ballroom. You run to the ballroom. You slow down at the door for a second. You kind of get it back open again. You're free and clear. There's you run around the corner and you run into a couple like having sex in the ballroom because it's Hart House and that's what people do here. So there's a little bit of, pardon me, excuse me. And then you keep running and you get across the ballroom and around another corner and you realize that there's an open window and she's gone out the window and you've lost her.
She ran out the window. So like actually outside.
Yeah. Yeah. She beat you. Her passive stealth was higher than your awareness.
Right. Damn.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, at least that was an interesting way to spend the night.
All right. So it's 9 o'clock. I don't want to keep all of our meetings going long, so we should stop there. I have stuff still planned for Hart House, but we'll just pick it up next game.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody else have questions for me or anything? Everybody gets everyone has 2 XP from the previous nights from the encounter up with Davith Barnell at the festival. And there will be more in Hart House, but we didn't get to it. So I'll save that. And we'll roll the last third, the third month. We'll figure out what happens there next game as well.
Okay. Sounds good.
Garrett, if you want to send a letter to Lord Barnell. then write that to me on email. If anybody else has questions or comments, let me know. Otherwise, there's also, you'll find in the folder, in our folder on Google Drive, there is a gazetteer which describes all of the stuff on the map.
Oh, okay, good.
And that link is right here. And it's a very short description. It's just a very brief kind of outlined bullet list. But it gives you an idea of what all these places are and who all the families are and that sort of thing. Very short, like 1 page. Okay?
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys. If you have any questions, grab me. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and stop for tonight.
All right.
Thanks to everybody who watched and listened in. We'll pick up with more intrigue and combat next session when we finish up the visit to Hart House.